Mike Gartner talking about the 1987 Canada Cup. Best hockey ever played, you think?
Best hockey that I have ever been part of. Certainly the best hockey that I've ever seen.
Because you've watched, I mean, you watched 72, right?
I watched 72.
You watched 76,
I watched 76,
right?
81, 84, which I was part of.
And you watched 2010. So,
I have.
So you would be more of an authority than certainly I would, because I watched them all, but I didn't play in them. Was this, do you think, the most exciting, most dramatic hockey tournament?
Yes, on both counts. And I think that because of that, it could very well be the best hockey that we've ever seen. And I think that one of the things that makes it very unique is you have probably the two best players, certainly of their era, playing together with Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux. And I think that that kind of makes it very, very appealing and compelling. Never
played together before that, never played afterwards. As a team, though, Mike Keenan had not played them together on a line. He played on 4-on-4, and they played on the power play. And the public was going, come on, you got to put those guys together. Were you thinking the same thing?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we were winning. We had won 2 games, I think, in the round robin and tied 2 games, and we beat the Czechs in the semifinals. So,
but that was a scare too, right?
It was a little bit of a scare.
I believe you guys were down early in that one.
We were down early in that one as well, and so you kind of wonder when Mike was going to start to make some changes to the lines, which he did, and I think it's a good thing that he did, because history tells us.
But you know what he says? He says the key to winning game number 3 were the checkers, were the pluggers, which is interesting because he's talking about Mike Gartner and Mark Messier, right? I mean, guys who are hardly called pluggers. You've been called a lot of things in your life. That probably wasn't one of them. But he said Gretzky was totally out of gas in that game. You know, you guys were really struggling, and a handful of guys like you picked it up.
Yeah, and guys like Rick Tocchet and guys like Brent Sutter and Dale Howardchuk, all us pluggers, right. You know, kind of plugging away and trying to make things happen out there. And it worked. We certainly had a little bit of a scare in the first period, but...
Where were you on the winning goal in Game 3?
I was on the bench, right. And just kind of watching it kind of unfold. It's funny, you kind of see it a little differently from the bench as you do from the camera.
Did you see the hook by Howardchuk?
What hook? Come on.
Did you see the hook?
There wasn't a hook. Was there at the blue line?
That was like the biggest hook, the biggest pick, the biggest impediment of all times. And I think Tikhonov actually went nuts afterwards. But, you know, it's like when you win, you kind of forget about it.
Well, it's kind of one of the interesting things, too, about watching it is just all the hooking and grabbing during the whole series. Like when you're watching games now and you don't see that kind of stuff, all of a sudden you're watching, and people watching these 3 games will be looking at it and say, wow, did they let that stuff go back then? And they did.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch the difference in styles, the difference in the size of the players. I mean, it looks like there's so much ice when you look back to 1987. You know, you're carrying the puck and you're going, you know, I mean, in the NHL now, nobody carries the puck for more than 5 strides.
Well, you're not allowed to. You know, the game's played a lot differently. I don't think it's necessarily has anything to do with skills. There were skilled players in 1987. There are skilled players now. I think that just the way the game is coached, you're not allowed to carry the puck so much. Well, I mean, 3 6-5 games now would just drive a coach completely crazy. So the coaches in some ways were taken out of it because of the style that was being played.
Yeah, we could lament that those were the good old days in a lot of ways.
I don't know if I'm not necessarily one of those that always says it's the good old days.
No, but the 6-5 game, you know, 3 6-5 games in a 3-game final series with the stakes so huge, that's good stuff.
That's really good stuff, and probably is better than 3-2-1 games that would be played at any other time. So I think that the goal scoring, the types of goals that are scored, the open part of the game, 2 overtime games, 1 late goal in Game 3. I mean, it made for great TV, and it was great hockey.
Both Gretzky and Keenan said that the energy in the building for game number 3 in Copps Coliseum, you know, the fans, the way, the tension, everything that was in the air was the most excitement they ever saw.
And it built. It seemed to build over the whole series. It started in Montreal in Game 1. Montreal's always a great place. There's always a tremendous amount of excitement. But Game 2, winning in overtime, and all of a sudden Game 3. And then when we started to come back in Game 3, I mean, it was electric in there. And I've had so many people come up to me over the last number of years and said, I was in Copps Coliseum and I watched that game, and I'll remember it for the rest of my life. You could feel the energy.
I was working that night. I was doing sports desk, and it was like impartiality, not a factor at this point. It was a great moment, and one of the reasons why it was the quality and the depth of the team from top to bottom, and you, sir, were one of the reasons why. Thanks, Mike.
Oh, thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Will you tell me what you said the first time you were on the show?
You're a real beaut.
I love that. I don't know what it means, but I love that. Good to see you.
I'll tell you later.